Ronda Rousey walked onto the podium, bronze medal in hand. The stadium roared. Cameras flashed. Fans cheered. Journalists praised her accomplishment. But instead of celebrating, she called it a failure. Her words stunned everyone. Why would a champion, one of the fiercest competitors in the world, dismiss what many would call a victory? What she did next shocked the crowd and everyone watching, and left a mark that no medal could capture. Make sure you watch this story until the end, and don't forget to subscribe, because the full journey reveals lessons about resilience, pressure, and the mind of a true champion. The stadium lights were blinding. A sea of faces surrounded the podium, a wave of energy so intense it felt almost tangible. Every camera in the arena was trained on her. Every lens focused on the moment everyone expected would be one of triumph. And yet, there she was, Ronda Rousey, standing still, bronze medal in hand, with an intensity that contrasted sharply with the applause around her. From the moment she stepped onto the podium, the air seemed to change. There was excitement, yes, but there was also tension. The audience expected joy. They expected a grin, maybe a fist raised in victory, perhaps a celebratory shout. But Ronda's eyes were locked somewhere beyond the crowd, somewhere only she could see. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "And your bronze medalist, Ronda Rousey." The stadium erupted. Cameras flashed. Fans waved banners, shouted her name, and some even cheered in multiple languages. Social media teams were already capturing snippets, preparing highlights for the world to see. Yet Ronda didn't move much. She held the medal carefully in her hands, as if it were fragile, almost foreign to her. And then she spoke. "I call this a failure," she said quietly, almost to herself. The arena went still, not dead silent. There was still the echo of applause and cheers, but it was like someone had cut a subtle thread of energy, replaced it with a weighty pause. Journalists froze mid-pen stroke. Reporters raised microphones, unsure whether to follow up or wait. Even her teammates, standing at the edge of the podium, exchanged tense glances. This wasn't what anyone expected. Not from Ronda Rousey. Not from a fighter who had conquered so many arenas, who had brought so many victories to the record books. Bronze, a medal, podium finish. And yet, failure? Some people gasped. Others whispered. Cameras zoomed closer, catching the flicker of emotion across her face. Frustration, disappointment, focus, and perhaps a spark of something deeper. Something no medal could satisfy. "What do you mean by failure, Ronda?" a reporter finally asked, stepping forward cautiously. Ronda didn't respond immediately. She tilted her head slightly, taking in the stadium, the cameras, the cheers, and the murmurs. She let it sit. The pause alone sent ripples through the crowd. Her teammates shifted uneasily. The announcer cleared his throat nervously, unsure if he should intervene. Then she spoke again, slower this time, measured. "It's not about what you see. It's about what you know you could have achieved. Bronze isn't the goal I set for myself. Not today. Not this season. Not ever." The words landed like a shockwave. Fans, journalists, and even competitors watching live on screens around the world felt it. Some nodded, understanding the mindset of someone who had dedicated her life to dominance in a sport where victory is measured in absolute terms. Others frowned, confused, unsettled. How could winning a medal feel like failure? It was the kind of statement that challenged perspective. And that's what Ronda wanted. Because medals are public. Recognition is public. And everyone sees them, judges them, celebrates them. But only the athlete knows the price paid for that achievement. The sacrifices, the injuries, the long nights of training, the mental toll. Bronze, in the eyes of the world, was a triumph. In her mind, it was unfinished business. The crowd quieted. Cameras focused. Everyone leaned in to hear more. And then Ronda did something even more unexpected. She didn't leave the podium sulking. She didn't lash out. She didn't blame the judges, the system, or the opponents. Instead, she addressed the crowd, her teammates, and the millions watching from home. "It's a lesson," she said. "A lesson in preparation, in persistence, in focus. I fought. I trained. I gave everything I had. But I also know I could have pushed further. And that is what drives me. Knowing that bronze isn't enough. Some reporters murmured. Some fans gasped again. Social media lit up instantly with live reactions. She's too hard on herself. That's the mindset of a true champion. Ronda doesn't settle. She never does. The tension in the stadium transformed. What started as shock became fascination. What seemed like criticism became inspiration. Because in that moment, Ronda Rousey revealed the hidden truth of elite competition. The struggle is invisible. The battles inside the mind matter as much as the ones on the mat. Her coach, standing slightly behind her, nodded subtly, a quiet acknowledgement. He knew the hours, the pain, the discipline, the relentless push she had endured. No one else in that arena could fully grasp it. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. Not wide, not celebratory. Just a calm, focused smile. The kind of smile that says, "This is not the end. This is the beginning." The crowd responded in kind. A mixture of cheers, applause, and reflective silence. Cameras continued to flash, capturing every angle. Broadcasters debated the statement live. Was she ungrateful, or was she redefining success? And that's when Ronda shifted the story completely. She took the microphone closer. Her voice firm, clear, and commanding. Every word carried weight. Not just because she was Ronda Rousey, but because it came from someone who had been through relentless struggle, pain, and triumph. She wasn't speaking to reporters. She wasn't performing for cameras. She was speaking to the next generation of fighters, the dreamers, the young athletes who looked up to her and wondered what it really took to succeed. The young fighter she had singled out froze for a moment. Eyes wide, hands trembling slightly, caught between awe and disbelief. Ronda stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough so the cameras couldn't capture the nuance. But the message was crystal clear. You don't wait for permission. You don't wait for recognition. You step up when the opportunity is right in front of you, she said. Her gaze didn't waver. The arena felt smaller somehow, every ear attuned to her presence. Around her, the crowd's energy shifted. People who had been focused on the medal, the controversy, or the unexpected declaration of failure suddenly understood that the moment was bigger than the podium, bigger than a single bronze medal. This was about legacy, about resilience, about refusing to accept comfort when the challenge was still unfolding. The teenager swallowed hard, nodded once, barely audibly, and then stepped forward. For a split second, the entire stadium held its breath. The air was thick with anticipation. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every movement. Social media teams back home were already live-streaming the scene, hashtags forming in real time. Hashtag Ronda Rousey, hashtag next champion, hashtag bronze or bust. Ronda's coach, standing quietly at the edge of the podium, allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible nod. He had seen countless athletes step into the limelight, but rarely had he seen someone wield influence with such quiet authority, commanding attention not through shouting or showmanship, but through conviction and presence. Good, Ronda said simply, her voice softer now but no less firm. Now keep your focus. One step at a time. Don't be distracted by noise. And don't let anyone else define what success looks like for you. The teenager's hands shook slightly, but the nod this time was more confident. Something had shifted inside them, a spark ignited by witnessing a true champion in action. And in that moment, everyone in the arena, spectators, reporters, fellow athletes, felt a collective understanding. Ronda's words were bigger than any medal, bigger than any fight. The announcer cleared his throat nervously, attempting to regain control of the formal proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give another round of applause for our bronze medalist, Ronda Rousey. Applause erupted again, louder this time, layered with a new energy. It wasn't just recognition for the medal, it was acknowledgement of the mindset, the discipline, the courage to speak truth even when the world expects celebration. Ronda stepped back slightly, allowing the teenager to return to their seat, but she didn't leave the stage just yet. She glanced over at her teammates, who had been watching anxiously. Some looked relieved, Some looked inspired, and some were quietly reflecting on their own journeys, the training, the sacrifices, the battles both won and lost. "Don't ever mistake a single result for the entirety of your potential," she said, addressing the room broadly now. "Bronze, silver, gold, they are all markers. But the real victory is in how you respond to each challenge, how you grow from each fight, and how you carry yourself when no one else is watching." Her words landed differently on each person. For the coaches and trainers, it was a validation of their methods. For the younger athletes, it was a call to action. For the media, it was an unexpected narrative twist that no one had prepared for. And for the fans, both in the stadium and watching worldwide, it was a lesson in humility, strength, and perspective. Even the competitors who had defeated her earlier that season watched quietly, some with admiration, some with unease. They understood something fundamental about Ronda that went beyond her physical strength or technical prowess. She had a mental edge, a psychological resilience that few could replicate. And tonight, she had demonstrated it in a way no fight ever could, through candid honesty, composure under scrutiny, and the power of influence. As she finally walked off the podium, bronze medal in hand, the stadium erupted once more. This time, the applause was more layered. There was respect. There was understanding. There was realization. Cameras followed her every step, capturing the quiet intensity of her walk. No exaggerated gestures. No dramatic exit. Just purpose. She paused briefly near a young child who had been waving a handmade sign reading, "Ronda, you inspire me." She smiled softly, crouched down, and tapped the sign lightly. "Keep pushing," she said. The words were simple, but their impact was undeniable. For that child, that brief interaction would linger for years, a memory of motivation tied directly to witnessing someone who refused to settle. And then, almost imperceptibly, the arena seemed to exhale collectively. The tension, the shock, the disbelief, it dissipated. People returned to celebrating the event, but now with a deeper understanding. They had witnessed not just a medal ceremony, but a masterclass in resilience, mental toughness, and leadership. Backstage, the press tried to capture Ronda's raw reaction. Microphones hovered, cameras zoomed in, but she remained composed. She answered questions candidly, yet deliberately avoided sensationalizing the moment. Bronze was not a failure, it was a stepping stone, a moment of reflection, and, most importantly, a reminder of the relentless pursuit of excellence. Her coach approached, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You handled that well," he said, voice low. "Better than I could have imagined." Ronda nodded, still processing. "It's never about the medal," she said quietly. "It's about the work, the growth, the next fight." The conversation was brief, but it encapsulated the philosophy that had guided her entire career. Bronze, in isolation, might appear as an underachievement. But in context, the countless hours of training, the battles fought, the public scrutiny endured, it became a narrative about determination, perspective, and character. Outside the stadium, fans lingered, replaying snippets on their phones, posting reactions online, and debating her declaration. The phrase Ronda Rousey calls bronze failure dominated headlines, yet the deeper story, about mindset, discipline, and resilience, was beginning to spread in whispers, conversations, and reflective commentary. And in that quiet ripple of influence, Ronda had done something extraordinary. She had reminded everyone watching, young and old, fans and critics alike, that victory is subjective, that success is not always measured by medals, applause, or recognition. True achievement lies in personal standards, relentless effort, and the courage to be honest with oneself, even when it goes against public opinion. Public opinion had already begun to ripple across social media, sports forums, and news outlets. Clips of Ronda Rousey standing silently on the podium, bronze medal in hand, refusing to celebrate, were circulating rapidly. Some people criticized her, calling her too harsh on herself or ungrateful, while others praised her honesty, labeling it the mindset of a true champion. Every comment section became a battlefield of interpretation, debate, and admiration. But Ronda was not watching. She never had been. She knew that public opinion was fleeting, a wave that came and went with the next viral clip, the next headline, the next controversial quote. Her focus was internal. The reflection of years of training, hours of discipline, and countless sacrifices played out in her mind like a silent montage. Each punch, each fall, each victory and loss. It all contributed to this very moment, this quiet intensity, this refusal to settle. Back in the locker room, the bronze medal sat untouched on the bench. Ronda ran her fingers lightly over its surface. The cool metal was heavy with symbolism, yet it felt insufficient to her. To the casual observer, it was proof of achievement. To Ronda, it was a challenge, a reminder of how far she had come and how far she still had to go. Her coach approached cautiously, knowing she needed space yet sensing that conversation was inevitable. "You handled them well," he said, voice low, almost reverent. "The reporters, the crowd, the chaos. All of it. You turned it into something bigger than just a medal."
Ronda exhaled slowly.
Her eyes were distant, focused inward. "It's never about the medal," she said softly. "It's about understanding your own limits and knowing that there is always more to push for. Bronze is a marker, nothing more. The work continues." Outside, fans were still buzzing. Some had camped outside the stadium for hours, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. Others were replaying videos online, analyzing every movement, every expression, every subtle gesture. And they all sensed the tension that no medal ceremony had ever produced before. Meanwhile, journalists scrambled to rewrite their headlines. The story was no longer about a podium finish. It was about mindset, determination, and the courage to confront personal expectations in public. Talk shows debated the implications. Sports analysts dissected the psychology behind her statement. Coaches and trainers dissected the training regimen that produced such a mindset. Every angle of the event became fodder for discussion, but no one could truly capture the internal fire that had driven her to speak so candidly. Ronda, however, remained untouched by the commentary. She walked through the halls of the stadium, bronze medal in hand, acknowledging fans with a quiet nod, a simple wave, a reserved smile. She didn't perform. She didn't dramatize. Every movement was purposeful, controlled, measured. And in that control lay her power, the kind that goes beyond physical strength, beyond skill, beyond medals and trophies. As she exited the arena, the sun had begun to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the pavement. The lights inside the stadium glowed warmly behind her, but outside, the world felt different. It was quieter, slower, yet the ripple of her actions earlier that evening was still palpable. Conversations sparked among fans walking past one another. "Did you see what she said? I can't believe she called bronze a failure. That's why she's a true champion." Ronda's mind wandered briefly to the competitors who had been watching live, both in the stadium and through broadcast feeds. She knew some had felt the sting of comparison, the pressure of expectations magnified by her statement. But she also knew that anyone with true dedication would recognize her message. It wasn't meant to belittle achievement. It was meant to inspire relentless improvement, to challenge complacency, and to remind the world that growth requires discomfort. Back in her private suite, she sat quietly, reflecting on the journey that had led her here. From the early days in small gyms, to grueling training camps, to international competitions, every moment had contributed to her resilience, her drive, and her mindset. The bronze medal was a milestone, not a destination. And yet, she could feel the world watching, analyzing, judging. That awareness was heavy, but she embraced it. It was part of the responsibility that came with being a champion, the expectation to inspire, to challenge, and to lead by example. Hours later, her coach returned with a folder of interviews, press clips, and social media reactions. "They're everywhere," he said, spreading the papers across the table. "Everyone is talking about what you said. Some love it, some don't, but everyone is watching." Ronda smiled faintly, not out of pride, but out of recognition. "It doesn't matter what they say," she replied. "What matters is that the message reaches the right people." Those who want to learn, those who are willing to push themselves, those who refuse to settle. The rest? Let them talk. They'll move on soon enough. And she was right. Within hours, millions had seen snippets of the podium ceremony online. Viral clips highlighted her calm demeanor, her measured words, and her refusal to treat bronze as the final victory. Fans debated endlessly, some expressing admiration, others confusion. But the conversation was now layered with nuance. It was no longer just about winning a medal. It was about mindset, perseverance, and the psychology of an elite athlete who refuses to settle. Even her competitors began to feel the weight of her influence. Some reached out privately to congratulate her, acknowledging the discipline and honesty it took to speak so candidly in public. Others reflected silently on their own careers, wondering if they had approached victory with the same rigor and self-awareness. In that moment, Ronda's bronze medal became a symbol not of limitation, but of expectation. A mirror held up to the world, reflecting not just achievement, but the drive to surpass it. The stadium, now empty, echoed faintly with memories of applause, camera flashes, and hushed whispers. The bronze medal, once a tangible object of recognition, had become almost secondary. The real legacy was in the statement made, the courage displayed, and the influence imparted. Ronda understood that the real victory would not be measured in headlines or viral clips. It would be measured in the quiet moments. The young athletes inspired to train harder, the coaches challenged to demand more from themselves and their teams, the fans encouraged to see beyond superficial markers of success. And as the night drew to a close, the medal sat quietly on the bench beside her. Not dismissed, not celebrated, but acknowledged, a reminder that achievement is fleeting, but mindset endures.